Good evening, you're listening to The Truth Tank and I'm your host, Attack. If this is your first time listening to The Truth Tank, a big welcome. If you're a repeat listener, welcome back. This is the third Weekly Tank episode. If you're not aware, I've recently started a new part of the show called The Weekly Tank that looks at small topics, movie reviews, things like that. If you've listened to the previous episodes, you probably know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much now. Chapter 1 of Live Communism is set for release late June. I had to postpone the release. It was meant to come out in March, but my computer shit itself, which I've mentioned on previous episodes, and if you want to get the full details of that, I've mentioned it on a couple of previous episodes. So Chapter 1 of Live Communism is set for a late June 2025 release. Hopefully I don't have any more technical issues, because it seems like every time I've gone to record it, something has happened. Either I can't find something, a computer breaks down, or lose something related to it, or some other technical issue comes up. I swear Lennon's ghost is in the computer and he doesn't want this podcast series coming out. And if the intro to this episode sounds a little different to the rest of the episode, it's because I've had to record the intro to this particular episode about 3 times. The first one was out of date because of the stuff that's happened in Live Communism. This is a episode that was recorded months ago on my old computer, so it might sound a little different. It was meant to come out after the Super Bowl, but obviously that didn't happen because of the computer shitting itself in early March. So if you're wondering why am I doing an episode about the 2025 Super Bowl now, it's because was recorded a while ago. So are a lot of the episodes that have come out in the last month or so. They were all recorded earlier in the year. I also lost my movie review on Nosferatu. I pretty much lost 80% of it due to the memory fault. So this part of the episode is definitely going to sound different to the second part of the intro and the rest of the episode. So apologies for that. Unfortunately, things just don't go your way sometimes and you have to re-record things over and over again just to get it right. Or you think you've already recorded it and you realise you're missing half of the intro and you have to record it again. And I seem to just attract technical issues. Especially in the last few months, it's been pretty challenging for podcasting. I've had scripts that have gone missing, or I've transferred them over to a hard drive and I can't find them because they're not labelled properly. One of which was Bioweapons Part 4. I'm going to finish that series as well this year. I've written Part 4. I completed that last week and I'm writing Part 5 at the moment, and a Part 6 and however many there happens to be. I've been meaning to complete that series for a while now. It's always been in the back of my mind, but with Live Communism trying to get that finished, it's always been pushed to the back burner. Then other smaller episodes come up and I thought, well, fuck it, I don't have enough time to finish the script. I'll just do a quicker episode on a single topic rather than a big historical series spanning multiple time periods. But Part 4 is finished. Part 5 is probably about halfway, and there'll probably be Part 6, maybe a 7. I'm also doing AI art for the podcast, so if you've seen some episodes with artwork, Bioweapons Part 1 and 2 have artwork. I'm working on the third, and the fourth should be out pretty soon. No release date yet. I'm going to get probably Live Communism chapters 1 and 2 out before I finish that. I knew I had the script half written. I had released Part 3 and Part 4 was on the same file. I eventually found the rest of the script. It was mislabeled under Bioweapons Part 3 or whatever episode it happened to be under. It took me a few weeks to find it. I had to go through the same document over and over because I knew it was in there somewhere. As it turned out, it was on the same file as Bioweapons 3, but the Bioweapons 3 file I was reading was a different one. It was slightly modified and didn't have Part 4 attached to it, so I had to find the original unedited document, and then I found it halfway through. I had to read through pretty much the entire script until I found it, and it was kind of jumbled, so I cut and paste and started a new script from there. But I'm probably rambling, just keeping you updated on what's happening with the show. So back to the 2025 Super Bowl. So whether you love the Super Bowl or hate it, you can't deny that it has become a cultural and global phenomenon. It's watched in many countries around the world now, not just the US. I've watched probably the last 15 or so Super Bowls. Even when I was working, I'd always find a TV and go check the score. This is well before the days of smartphones, so I couldn't just watch it on a phone. Going back to the dark days of working at Macca's, I always used to put it on in the crew room and go and check it every couple of minutes when I wasn't busy. But it's not the same thing. You have to kind of watch it, or at least have it on in front of you. I mean, I was working while I was watching this Super Bowl and the last one. I didn't really have much of a dog in this fight. I don't mind the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're not my favourite team. I don't really have a favourite team anymore. I kind of just like the sport. I like a few different teams. I'm very excited. The NFL's coming to Australia next year, 2026, and I plan on being there. I can't stand the Kansas City Chiefs, and apologies if you are a Chiefs fan, you're probably not going to like this episode. I don't know what it is about them. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. Andy Reid's a fantastic coach. Travis Kelce's a pretty good tight end. I don't think he's the best. I think he's a bit of a tool, actually. But there's something about that team that, I don't know, I just don't like. And when the Chiefs made it to yet another Super Bowl, which is an incredible achievement, was 3 in a row, I thought, here we go again. Chiefs are going to win, and they'll get the three-peat and make the history books. So I wasn't too excited about the Super Bowl. It's been a pretty average year. It's been pretty boring, to be honest. And I thought, here we go again, just another boring Super Bowl. But at the same time, I thought, yeah, it is pretty cool that the Philadelphia Eagles have made it back to a Super Bowl after losing 2 years ago to the Chiefs. So this is a bit of a rematch, because the last 2 Super Bowls have both been rematches. The 49ers Chiefs last year, which is a repeat of not the year before that, but the year before that, which has pretty much been how the NFL has been going the last couple of years. The top teams have pretty much dominated. It's become very predictable of who is going to make it to the playoffs, then who's eventually going to make it to the Super Bowl. Predicting what teams were going to make it to the Super Bowl this year was a lot harder than it has been. I mean, I've called the last couple, not to inflate my own ego, but I'm pretty good at predicting things like this. You don't have to be Nostradamus to work out that the Bills were going to make it to the playoffs, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and those top teams, and those kind of outlier teams that have been building in the background but probably aren't quite there yet. Probably can't go to the Super Bowl, or if they do, they're probably going to get massacred, like the Vikings, the Washington Commanders, and a few teams like that. Because in the last, I think, 5 to 6 Super Bowls, it has been pretty predictable. I think the last surprising one was the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl from, what was that, 4 years ago now, whatever it was, 3 years. I mean, the Rams were pretty dominant that year, so it's kind of obvious that they were probably going to go to the finals. Bengals, not so much, because it was Burrow's first year, and very rarely do you see the rookie do much in their first year. So that was a bit of a surprise, the Bengals getting there and beating some of those bigger, more established teams with a more experienced quarterback and offensive line and defense. But the last 3 Super Bowls have been pretty fucking predictable. It's been the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Eagles, the 49ers, back to the Eagles. I think there might have been Tampa Bay in there somewhere. When was that? That was 5 years ago. Tampa Bay, the Chiefs, that was a good one. That was one of the COVID Super Bowls. What was that? That was 2021 or 2020. Then it was the Rams Chiefs. Then it was the Rams Bengals, Chiefs 49ers, Chiefs Eagles, Chiefs 49ers. Or was it Tampa Bay, Chiefs, Chiefs 49ers, Rams Bengals, Chiefs Eagles, Chiefs 49ers, Chiefs Eagles again. Yeah, I think that's how it went. But anyway, I guess it's a long-winded way of saying the NFL has become pretty predictable. This year, I don't know, just didn't really have that interest for me as it usually does. A lot of teams you thought were going to do well sucked. A lot of teams that you thought were going to suck did pretty well. So it's kind of a mixed bag. The Chiefs, were the standout team. They were great. So were the Eagles. And you can never really predict now too early on because, some teams suck the first couple of weeks. But after about the first month to 5 weeks, you kind of could see who was going to make it to the playoffs. I didn't know who was going to make it to the Super Bowl. That was kind of still cloudy because I thought Because I thought to myself, there's no way in hell the Chiefs are going to make it to another Super Bowl. But here they are. The Eagles, you could tell, definitely had that spark early on. Well, they lost 4 games. The Chiefs lost, was it 2? Tampa really should have beat them. They had them on the ropes, and rather than go for those 2 points, they tried to get smart, be conservative, and challenge them in the overtime, which never ever works out against the Chiefs in overtime because the penalties always seem to go the Chiefs' way, especially in overtime. If you don't believe me, fucking look it up. So we might even get into some conspiratorial, is the NFL rigged territory in this episode. I honestly thought that the Detroit Lions were finally going to get back to a Super Bowl this year, but when they got their asses kicked by the Vikings, or the Commanders, one of the teams, I think it was the Vikings, I couldn't believe it. Like, they've been that favourite team for so long, and they've had some injuries and ups and downs this year, but they were like killing teams. But then kind of after the midway point of the season, they were just starting to win by like a field goal or overtime, which is never, the most convincing way to win. Chiefs, the same thing. The Chiefs played messy this year. I didn't see any games where they were really like that dominant until the fourth quarter. They're the fourth quarter comeback team. That's kind of their thing, is whenever they're down, no matter how much it's by, they always seem to find a way to win in the fourth quarter. They played messy. Patrick Mahomes, he played pretty well, but I don't think it was a standout year for anybody. Kelce didn't fucking do much at all this season. I don't think he even caught that many balls before about halfway. I didn't really see a hell of a lot of Chiefs games, but they played very messy. They weren't convincingly winning. They weren't thrashing teams by 20 or 30 points. It was, like a touchdown or a field goal, maybe 10, 20 points. And a lot of the games I did see with them came down to like the last 5 minutes of the game where they scored and just managed the clock better. Especially against that playoff game against the Bills, where the Bills shot themselves in their both feet again by trying to get fucking smart and go for the 2 points when they should have fucking gone for the 1 point kick after, take the 1 point, and they would have evened the score, forcing the Chiefs to go into overtime, where you at least have a chance at beating them. It was a cold, snowy game. That first 2 point attempt, you can kind of forgive a coach for trying to be a bit sneaky and get up on the opposition. But when it failed, you thought, okay, their defense is fucking incredible. I will give it to the Chiefs. Their defense is pretty fucking good. Their defense had them covered, so why would you risk doing that again? And yet, next time they score, they try to do exactly the same thing. I think they did it 2 or 3 times in that game, which is ironic because they ended up losing by 2 points, which would have been the 2 points they would have evened the score with if they had have just gone for the conservative 1 point. In the words of John Madden, you take the fucking points. You don't get fancy, especially with a team like the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Eagles were pretty dominant in that game against the Commanders. I mean, they mopped the floor with them. So, I mean, that was obvious. They had won by the end of the first quarter. They were just too powerful, too dominant, and you could really tell that team had this spark and this drive and a desire to get back to the Super Bowl to prove everybody wrong. They've copped a lot of shit over the years for that. So it was a bit of poetic payback. And last year's Super Bowl team, the 49ers, pretty much had a pretty abysmal year. They fizzled out. They never really got going. Injuries, things like that. The AFC South is just a mixed fucking bag. You got no idea who's performing in that team at all. In that conference, I should say. So it's just a very uneven, very strange year. I mean, the last 10 seasons I've been saying it's been a weird year. I guess it kind of has been, but then again, I think you have those long-established dynasty teams like the Patriots for 20 years, and it becomes very normal that you expect the Patriots to get in. Now we've kind of switched, and now it's the Chiefs' turn. And before that, what you have like going right back to the 60s, quote, Super Bowl era, where you had the Raiders, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Packers. They've all had their turn at going to multiple Super Bowls and being that dynasty team. But in the last few years, there's definitely been a trend to the NFL becoming very conservative and very predictable. It's kind of always the Chiefs. It's probably the Eagles are probably going to be pretty dominant for the next 10 years or so because some of the talent coming out of the colleges into the NFL is pretty incredible. There's a lot more athletic, very fast, very sneaky quarterbacks. The era of the Matt Ryans, Tom Brady's, and Ben Roethlisberger's, those big 6'4", 6'5" guys, the boxy shoulders who can't move or can't run, that era is definitely over. Those guys could throw better than anyone else on the planet. But the NFL's definitely switched to a more theatrical, more athletic, entertaining form of quarterback, which tends to be smaller, more athletic guys who can run and can dance around players. And like Patrick Mahomes isn't particularly tall, but he can throw. He's very quick. Jalen Hurts, that dude's like a fucking, like the Flash. The way he can run and dodge opponents. I mean, Tom Brady couldn't run. He couldn't dodge opponents like that. Not like the athleticism of Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or even guys like Baker Mayfield. He's a bit more of an all-rounder. He's probably one of my favourite quarterbacks. Going back to the Browns, and now he's actually got a team that appreciates him in the Buccaneers. He's a guy that can run, find different ways to win. He's not as fast or as agile, but he's still pretty fucking good. Who are some of the other more athletic quarterbacks? Can't think of any at the moment, but you probably get what I mean. Before I waffle on about the NFL any longer, let's get into the main part of tonight's show. So without further ado, this is episode 72 of the Truth Tank, and the third weekly tank episode, the 2025 Super Bowl.
Sharks of the corn? Virus shark? Cocaine shark? Sharktopus? Yeah, those are all real movies. Join me, Steve Coates, as each week I take a comedic look at the bizarre world of sharksploitation cinema on Bucket of Chum, the Shark Movie Podcast.
First up, ticket prices to the Super Bowl have become astronomically high. I cannot believe how much some of the tickets are. Like the AFL Grand Finals, a couple of $100. Was it that Rams-Bengals Super Bowl in SoFi Stadium? What was that? Like the most expensive ticket was 20-something thousand bucks or something like that. The cheapest ticket was about $5,000. And this year in New Orleans, they had to lower the price to about $3,000, which is just fucking absurd. I mean, yeah, you are going to the Super Bowl, you are getting a lot of entertainment, but $3,500 these days is a lot of money to a lot of people, and it doesn't go very far. And that's like, 3-4 weeks worth of groceries and fuel and bills and stuff like that. So it's not a lot of money. I just can't believe how much the tickets are. And every time you see a Super Bowl, it's always sold out. So there's a lot of people with a lot of money, or people who are saving for a long time to go to these things. I'd call it a rip-off. I mean, can they lower the ticket prices for the actual fans, and rather than just the celebrities that appear every year in a corporate box who have just brought a jersey at the merchandise stall, so they stand out even more? And New Orleans too isn't exactly LA. I know that they do adjust the prices depending on what city it's being played in, which is an aspect of the NFL I really do like, how they do share it around to different cities. Because in Australia, the AFL Grand Final's being locked down in Melbourne for like another 50 years or something like that. I never quite understood why it always has to stay in Victoria. Yes, they do have the biggest stadium and it holds over 100,000, but the Super Bowl proves you can have a smaller venue and still have a great Super Bowl. You just adjust the ticket price accordingly, depending on what size the venue is. The only time the AFL Grand Final has been outside of Victoria was during COVID, when Victoria was on pretty heavy lockdown. Western Australia wasn't, and neither was most of the country. There was a lot of bidding to get the Grand Final to other states. Perth ended up getting it in the new Optus Stadium, which I think holds like 70,000 people. There's a twilight game because they're a few hours behind the east coast of Australia. But it just proves you can have a AFL Grand Final outside of Victoria. No offense to anyone that does live in Victoria. I just think the monopoly Victoria has on the AFL is completely fucking backward. It's not the 1900s anymore. You don't have all the teams coming just from Victoria. It's a national game. And to put that in perspective for my American listeners, one state in Australia, Victoria, has nearly half of the football teams in the competition. That's like having New York or LA have 48 to 50% of all the NFL teams just in one state. And teams like Collywood, who I absolutely detest, have 8 out of 9 games in Victoria. They don't have to travel outside of the state. I mean, the furthest they had to travel in Victoria was to Geelong, which is about an hour out of Melbourne. And how is that fair when you have teams like West Coast or Fremantle, Brisbane, Gold Coast or Sydney, GWS, who have to travel pretty much every second week in a state, especially for Perth. They have to travel all the way from one side of the country to the other side of the country and back again, and then they wonder why the Eagles have had such a tough time with injuries lately. Fremantle's a different story, but it does take its toll, the travelling, because you basically write off 2 days recovering just from the travel, especially if you do have injuries. High pressure and altitude isn't exactly good. And when you have a team like Collywood or Melbourne that spend weeks just having to travel in the state, it's fucking bullshit. Because Collywood is right across the road from the MCG. You have Melbourne and Essendon. They're all suburbs of Victoria, of Melbourne. They're all pretty close together. The furthest away, I think, is Geelong and Essendon. They don't have that far to travel, and it's fucking bullshit that the rest of the country has to travel basically for a quote-unquote national game to one state. And a team like Collywood that's pretty successful, they have a lot of money, they seem to always get a pretty good fixture every year. This year they play Port for the first round, but then they'll probably have like a run of 3 or 4 games at home before they have to travel back to SA for Gather Round, where they think they still get the home game anyway, so it's not like they're playing away. Then they'll have another easy run of probably 6 to 8 games, pretty much all in Victoria. And their home ground is the biggest stadium in the country. Anyway, so I do like how the NFL does share it around. It's a much fairer way, and it spreads the wealth across the country rather than just having LA or New York have the Super Bowl every single fucking year. It makes things interesting. It gets people to go to other parts of the country they probably normally wouldn't, and in especially places like New Orleans with the recent terror attacks, it's great to have people come back and support the area, spend their money. It's good for tourism. It shows it's safe again, and it's good to pump some life back into Bourbon Street and places like that. One thing I hate with these big event games is the opening anthems and the songs and stuff. Oh, I find that so tacky. I can't stand it. Here with the AFL or NRL grand finals, just play the fucking game, get on with it. You don't need to fly over bullshit. Just start playing football. That should be enough. That's my own personal feelings on it. Some people probably like it. I mean, the flyover is pretty cool, seeing the jets and stuff flying over with the red, white and blue trailing behind them. I just think the anthems and stuff like that, and it's just gotten so over the top now. So when the teams come running out to the field, I thought, here we go, fucking again, this is going to be the Chiefs show. The Chiefs are going to score 20 points in the first 10 minutes, and it's going to be a very one-sided game. They look very confident, and yeah, rightfully so. They just won back-to-back Super Bowls. They've had 2 amazing years where they've only lost, 4 or 5 games in 2 years. It's pretty fucking impressive. Got one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it playing for them. A fantastic coach. They looked a little too cocky, a little too relaxed, and we got this kind of a vibe. Because I definitely think the Eagles came out swinging. They definitely had something to prove, and they weren't going to go down without one hell of a fucking fight. So my first thoughts, honestly, were, is the NFL rigged? I mean, a lot of people say it is. A lot of people say all sports are rigged. I mean, yeah, are they? Can they rig sports? I mean, it was proven 20-something years ago that the NBA was, in fact, rigged. It was on the payroll of one of the mafia families. They had a couple of umpires in their pocket who were massaging games the way they wanted to go, But then again, like the NBA is a much easier game to rig because you take one star player out, and most teams have one, two, or three real like impact star players, and everyone else is kind of like second tier. So you can actually affect the game if you foul someone like Steph Curry or LeBron out of a game. The NFL, I think there's too many moving parts to it. There's too many umpires. There's too many people on a field. It's harder to see, harder to control. Ice hockey's just too fast. With everything, if there's a will, there's a way. They'd find a way to rig it. So I have found it really interesting, especially in like the conspiracy circles where people say, "Oh, all sport, major sport is rigged." Could the AFL be rigged? Yeah, possibly. Like I mentioned before about Hollywood, there's definitely favouritism with certain teams. Like Hollywood has an easy run; they don't have to leave the state. They seem to get all these great first round picks and they have a lot of money. So they have a lot of resources and a lot of things stacked in their favour to make them successful. Whether the game is actually rigged by the Illuminati or the Umpires Association or a criminal element remains to be seen. But I think the owners, or not so much the owners, but certain teams who have more money than others, like Cleveland Browns, are probably not going to make a Super Bowl until like the year 3000. As much as I like them, they are one of my favourite teams. They just don't have the resources to compete with Kansas City Chiefs, an LA Rams, Eagles kind of team. They've had a pretty shit run. They had a couple of years ago when Baker was playing for them. They were pretty good. They made the playoffs for 2 years in a row, which is more than they've done in the last probably 30 years since Bill Belichick left. I know I just mentioned that the NBA was actually rigged, but with the rise of the online betting, has probably put a lot of damper on that physical manipulation of the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of game fixing or something in the NBA. I just think with the advancements in technology and cameras, and especially everything's high definition of 4K now, it's very easy to spot, oh, did this guy deliberately throw the ball out of bounds or miss this shot or something like that. Everyone's got a phone in their pocket where 20, 25 years ago that wasn't the case. I think it was much easier to get away with sneaky shit like that. Today it's a different story because there's just too many eyes and too many cameras, too much data, as they say. And then some sleuth would pick it up online, make a YouTube video about it, get 1 million clicks, and it'll become national news or go viral. And that's how Altuve got caught in the Houston Astros with that cheating scandal that just seems to have mysteriously disappeared and no one wants to mention it. The stealing bases. Someone who was watching the game, they had to record the game or something like that, and they were watching it back, and they noticed every time that he went up to pitch, someone was banging this lid together, which turned out to be the trash can lid, which was the signal of what ball was going to come, which is a huge advantage. If you don't think that's a huge thing in baseball, that is. Someone had the information on the pitch, or someone in the outfield, and they're using a laser pointer to communicate to the person banging the cymbals in the crowd or something like that. So it shows you how primitive some of these scams can be, but how elaborate they are. There's all multiple moving parts to it. And a game like baseball is slower, so I think probably the slower the game, or the less rough the game, probably the easier it is to fix. But is the NFL rigged on a whole? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I think the NFL has their teams they want to win. Because I don't think a team like the Raiders or the Browns are going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon. And like the NBA, I think Bill Burr has made this point. It's about the TV markets. You want the big cities. Well, the big cities want that TV market because it produces millions of dollars of advertisement. If you have it in a city like LA with millions more people watching. Because if you have Oklahoma City versus the Sacramento Kings, you're not going to get as many people tuning in compared to the Lakers versus the Celtics, or the Lakers versus the Mavericks or the Bulls or someone like that. I wouldn't say sport is 100% rigged, not professional sport anyway, but I definitely think it's massaged in a certain direction. There's a certain favoritism of teams. They're coerced and massaged into winning, or they get more opportunities and more resources to be successful or to be in that position where they can win. So like I was saying about the Chiefs before, they seem to get a lot of penalties go their way. And you count up how many penalties they got this season compared to the previous couple of seasons, especially in the fourth quarter. I noticed Patrick Mahomes would always get like 3 or 4 penalties go his way in the fourth quarter when they were down. I only watched a handful of games, but this was pretty consistent. I did notice a lot of penalties go his way, and it was always pretty close to the touchdown line. There'd always be a dodgy holding call where you'd have other teams' players get held, and it's very, I don't know, you kind of scream at the TV saying, why wasn't that a penalty? And the umpires just don't seem to see it, even though there's one right there. But someone, in the scrum fucking holds someone's jersey, and some umpire sees it from the sideline. So, go figure. But the Chiefs definitely get a lot of penalties go their way. It was pretty evident from the get-go the Eagles were a very different team this time around. They were playing for something. I think there was a bit of revenge for losing a couple of years ago and all that criticism that they've copped over the previous couple of seasons. They definitely had something to prove, and just missing out last year I think was a huge motivator as well, because they just seemed like a completely different team from the previous couple of years. And big Jordan Mailata, Australia's own, he had a huge impact. I mean, he's a massive man. To see him go from 2018 as a rookie, and I watched a doco on him a couple of years ago, spending 1 or 2 years in the international NFL school learning the game, because he hadn't played before he was drafted, which is very unusual. He played rugby. To see him go from a rookie to being one of the dominant defensive players in the league is incredible. He's a fantastic player. He is taken to that game like a duck to water. He's funny as fuck, and he's massive. And he has really fit that team. That patience the Eagles have shown him has definitely paid off, and he's now the first Australian to play in a Super Bowl. There's been Australians who have played in the Super Bowls but not won, or they've been injured. Mitch Winowski, for the kicker for the 49ers, he's played in 2, but he didn't win. So this brings us to the opening score. The Philadelphia Eagles scored first, which was also a surprise. I thought that Mahomes would have scored off of the first fucking drive, to be honest, or the second, which wasn't the case. I didn't pay too much attention to the first quarter because I thought it was just going to go all the Chiefs' way. Then after the first quarter, I started to pay attention. I'm like, okay, this is not going how I thought it was. Something is very different. And this is backed up by the number of interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, I think he went, 3 and out the first time. Then second time it was 3 and a interception, I'm pretty sure. And in the first quarter, Patrick didn't seem to get going at all. He made a lot of mistakes. He kind of looked nervous, which is surprising because he's been there so many times. But, I guess it's nerve-wracking. You're always going to have nerves. But Mahomes never really seems to get going in the first quarter at all. Same goes for Travis Kelce. He did fucking nothing in that first half. I mean, the one thing he did do was drop a very easy catch, which he did in the game against the Bills, I'm pretty sure. He had no impact in that first half or in that fucking game at all. He didn't do a lot. And this is a trend that has kind of kept up over this season. He hasn't really done a hell of a lot. I think he's a bit too interested in Taylor Swift, or maybe she makes him nervous watching, but I don't think he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, which is unusual because last year, the year before, he was scoring all the time. He was doing his stupid little dance every time he made 5 yards, which I fucking hate. But he didn't have much to dance about this year, and last year arguing with the coach on the sideline, pushing him, which I thought was fucking disgusting. You're a player, he's the coach, know your fucking role. Him getting angry and yelling at the sideline and throwing shit around, it's like, you fucking grow up. It's like, the sideline is not making you play bad, you are. You can only blame yourself. No matter how many times you fucking throw your helmet or your drink bottle or break one of those Surface tablet things, blame yourself. That's the only factor that's making you play bad is you. The second quarter, the Eagles definitely started to establish that they were here to play. And that was pretty evident in Cooper DeJean's shock interception and score that pretty much changed the tone of the whole game. He scored a touchdown in a Super Bowl, and it also happened to be his 22nd birthday. That interception was incredible. Like, once he got that, you could see the shock on Mahomes' face. He gets the interception, runs like 40 yards and scores, and that was the big balance shifter in that game. The Chiefs never recovered after that, and so far they haven't scored, which is once again another shock because I thought it would be like 2022 at this point, and this is kind of going into the halfway point of the game. And this is going into halftime. I thought it'd be pretty even within 2 to 5 points, like the previous couple of Super Bowls have been. But so far, it's been the Eagles' show. The Eagles absolutely dominated the first half. The Chiefs had nothing to really say or come back at. The Chiefs players on the sideline looked visibly shocked. So did Andy Reid. He's a hard dude to read too. He's got a very good poker face. He just doesn't have any emotion when he's coaching at all. He's just always looking at that clipboard, looking up and down. He's got the glasses and the hat and the mustache. He's a very hard dude to read. Nick Sirianni, on the other hand, doesn't have the poker face. He wears all of his emotions on his sleeve. But yeah, even Andy looked pretty shocked by this. I don't think this game was going the way anyone had planned at the Chiefs, and obviously not. And one of their defensive guys, when they try to do a block, had to get his neck put back in or something on the sideline. The physio, it fucking looked painful. I know how that feels. Having your neck jarred like that fucking hurts. So it's now halftime and it's 24-0. I don't think anyone predicted this game was going to go like this. And I'm starting to think at this point this is going to be like a massive historic blowout. The favourite team is now down by 24 points at halftime, and that's a deficit that's hard for anyone to come back. The Eagles just had the momentum. They had that fire that was just going their way. And this brings us to the halftime show. And the halftime shows have just got so over the top. They always try to outdo each other rather than just focus on the quality of the performance and the music. I didn't like the Rihanna one from a few years ago. That was stupid. The Usher one from last year was dreadful. That was one of the worst I've seen in the last couple of years, and I've really just been kind of turned off to them. The last good one was The Weeknd, the Tampa Chiefs game. That was pretty good. It was stripped back. They didn't have the overhead stuff to work with, like the floating bridge thing, floating platforms that Rihanna did. It was more he just came out from a door. I think the only prop he had was that mirrored room and the red car. The dancing was good, but it was very stripped back. It was all about the music and the performance and the quality of the artist rather than the flashy over-the-top gimmicks and shit. There's been a couple of good ones. I mean, Prince was the best. That was, 15, 20 years ago? That was pretty good, and then it actually rained when he played Purple Rain. Katy Perry, yeah, she was pretty good. Maroon 5 was fucking garbage. I don't like the ones where they have 3 artists or 4 artists come out. You get one verse in a song or a chorus and then it's on to the next thing. I think it should just stick with one artist, maybe a guest. The Beyonce ones, yeah. Lady Gaga was good. I think she had Beyonce or someone come out in one of them. As a guest, yes, that works. I just don't think you need more than one person because it's only 15 minutes. It's basically just a mashup of catchy verses and hooks and the choruses of a song, and then it goes into the other one, but you probably already know that. Coldplay was crap. I mean, I'm not a Coldplay fan, but that music didn't really suit the Super Bowl. Justin Timberlake by himself was good. Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, well, we all know how that one ended. The one multiple artist halftime show that actually worked was the Bengals-Rams Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. Having Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg in LA was awesome. Even though it was more so the Snoop Dogg show, Dr. Dre did his stuff in the background, but Dr. Dre's more of a producer anyway. Then having Eminem and Mary J. Blige do their part was also really cool. That one, yeah, could you say that was rigged? Did they want LA in the new LA stadium so they can make this big thing about, LA is a big sporting force to be reckoned with again? Because they didn't get one team, they had to get the Chargers as well and completely destroy and relocate that fan base, which I think is pretty greedy. It's also very weird you have two teams that have pretty much the same colours, blue and yellow. Yes, the Rams is like a royal blue and a gold, darker yellow colour. It's pretty much the same colour scheme. I think it's pretty greedy. They should have left San Diego where it was. Rams, I will make the argument that they were from LA originally and they should have always come back. Because I went to LA over 10 years ago now and there was no team there yet. I thought it was stupid that the second biggest city in the US doesn't have a football team. And they seem to be really into football. Like there's a lot of people who are... Every bar I walked past had football fans in it. There was jerseys from everywhere. And I got this real sense that this was a very football-focused city. But yet they don't have a team. Or they got rid of them to St. Louis, which, no offense, has a much smaller population than LA. And it didn't make any sense that they didn't have a team for, what was it, like 20, 25 years or something like that. Maybe longer. Back to the Super Bowl halftime show. Yeah, that one was cool. That one was a multiple artist halftime show that actually worked. It had Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige came out, then Eminem, then Kendrick Lamar. He only had like one song then. So he's had, 2 Super Bowls in the last 5-6 years. 50 Cent doing that chorus, hanging down from the roof was pretty fucking cool. I didn't see that coming. And having those surprise guests is really fucking cool. It does work if it's that certain song. And then having Eminem come out. But the only problem with Eminem is he didn't really do enough. He only had like one song and they should have brought him out earlier. Because it was, like I said, Dre and Snoop Dogg did most of the songs. It was mostly Snoop Dogg with Dr. Dre doing some of the stuff in the background and some of the choruses, then Mary J. Blige, then 50 Cent, and then Kendrick Lamar, then Eminem, or vice versa. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show was great. It was no bullshit. This is honestly one of the best Super Bowl performances I've seen. It was just about the music. There was no costume changes like the Lady Gaga one. I think she had a costume change, which in its own right is very impressive. She's changing these elaborate costumes in a couple of seconds. But there's too much theatrical flair and stuff like that. I like a bit more stripped back focus on the music. Like The Weeknd didn't have any costume changes. I think he might have changed jackets once and the bandages around his face. But yeah, Kendrick, no costume changes, just the Nikes, which I got to find out what they were. I couldn't really see them over his jeans, but they look pretty cool. The baggy kind of bootcut jeans, t-shirt, and that really cool leather jacket. No costume changes, just about the music. It was fucking great. I also like the Drake diss. I had to look into that because I hadn't heard much of that album. I think I've only heard like one song, so all of that was kind of new. Samuel L. Jackson introducing it was also great. And him being this narrator in between songs and setups worked really, really well. And that's where you could have a guest come in and, do some other song while there's a costume or set change. Because I thought, is he just going to have the one set? Because it wasn't really on a stage. It was just on the actual field itself. It looked like a car park, very street looking, with the light posts and a couple of stepped platforms and things like that. The choreography was great. The dancers were great. Yeah, the street lamp vibe was really, really cool, and they actually worked. And the people on the lamp posts, all that has probably a deeper meaning, but I haven't had time to look into it. And all the songs he played were pretty good. Obviously, all the swearing was taken out of it, which was most of his songs. He does swear a lot, which is funny why they kind of ask an artist like Kendrick Lamar, who does have very controversial lyrics, to do what the NFL sees as a, quote, family event. Then they have to edit out all the profanity and anything offensive, which was, a good portion of his music, like, humble. Especially the chorus of that. I mean, was it Sit Down, Bitch, Be Humble? And a couple of his other songs, the chorus does have quite a lot of profanity in it. So it's a bit of a weird choice at the same time, but a fucking great show. So this transitions us into the third quarter. Half the game is gone. There's a half to go. Third quarter, not a lot happens. There's not much to see at all. It's pretty lackluster. Third quarters usually are. Third quarters are definitely in the AFL, I think, is where the game is won or lost. There's a certain percentage you have to be trailing by if you want to kind of come back and win. I mean, yeah, you can come back and win from like a 50-point deficit. You just have to kick a lot of fucking goals. But if it's like especially the AFL, if it's a 70 to 80 game, yeah, it's anyone's game, it's 10 points, but if it's 32-80, it's a bit of a different story. A bit more obvious who's going to win. I'm not saying this is the case in the Super Bowl, and this quarter could have really been anybody's. I think the Eagles got 3 points, and I think that 3 points were only scored with 5 minutes to go. The Chiefs' defense definitely came out to play, but at that time they hadn't really scored, and that third quarter was pretty lackluster. So Patrick Mahomes comes up to lead the offense, and once again he is sacked. And that was the recurring theme of this game. He gets sacked a lot, and I think he got sacked more times in this game than he did all season. I think it was like up to 4 or 5 times he'd been sacked by nearly the end of the third quarter, and there's 3 minutes and 25 seconds to the end of the third, and Kelce gets his first completion, which was pretty much how this game went for the Chiefs. Mahomes gets sacked multiple times. Kelce's first completion with just over 3 minutes to the end of the third quarter doesn't say a lot for the back-to-back reigning Super Bowl champs. The Chiefs looked shell-shocked. They looked like they were having out-of-body experiences. They were just completely out of it by then. The coaches were frantic. The defense and offensive coach were running around and yelling and trying to get something going. Yes, the Chiefs' defense was pretty good. Obviously, like they only let up 3 points during that whole third quarter up until this point. But you're getting to that point in the game where it's becoming too little too late. And the Chiefs went for another 3 and out, and that was another recurring theme. They could only go for 3 plays, and then they were out. And one thing I haven't mentioned is the Eagles' defense was fucking fantastic. I mean, they stopped them multiple times. As I just said, there was another 3 and out. That's about all the Chiefs could really do in the first half and a bit. They went for 3 and out. That's basically all they did. The Eagles' defense was fucking incredible. Everything they did, they just looked like they knew what they were going to do before they did. They were on fire, they were dialed in, and they were playing on another level. It's always amazing with the Super Bowls where you see like those teams, they win throughout the season and they only win by 2 points going into the Super Bowl, or they get beaten by like an average team, but then they come out and they play the top team of the other conference who they haven't played during the season at all in most cases, or maybe they haven't even played them for the last 10 to 15 years or so. They meet them in the Super Bowl and then they completely blow them away. It's a bit different when you've played a team twice during the season and then you're facing them again. But all sports are like that. The AFL, the NFL, there's always those teams like Melbourne can't seem to beat the Brisbane Lions in the Gabba or something like that away from home. So this leads to Devontae Smith's touchdown, and wow, what a fucking touchdown it was. This is the first touchdown for the quarter, and this makes it 33-0, which is fucking astounding. I thought it would be 33-30. It's completely unbelievable that this is the third quarter, nearly the end of the third quarter in the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs have not scored a single point, not even a field goal attempt, nothing. So it's 33-0 with the point after, and this leads to Jaquan's dummy pass, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and a 46-yard return. And it's looking very much like this is going to be the game. There's no way now the Chiefs can come back. The deficit is too fucking high. It's 34-0. It's nearly the end of the third, so it's definitely looking like fly Eagles fly. A 30-point lead is a fucking big difference. It's a big difference from the previous Super Bowls, which have been pretty close. The last 2 Super Bowls have been pretty boring. As I said before, the LA Rams Bengals Super Bowl was probably the last really good one I've seen. That was pretty close the entire game. I think the Bengals led most of it, and then the Rams came back. It was definitely a more of an edge of your seat Super Bowl. The last 2 have been pretty boring. And it also brought up another surprising statistic at this point in the game, is that the Chiefs haven't been past the halfway point of the field, which is definitely very alien territory for Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy that will put up 150 over 200 yards per game, passing yards per game, and he hasn't been past the halfway point. So far, the Eagles have rendered their offense completely fucking useless. Chiefs' defense is a different story. They played much better, but the offense has been completely neutralized at this point. But you can't write Mahomes off completely. He has a pretty good pass, and this is the first time one of his passes has gone past the halfway point. But unfortunately, he is sacked again. But you can't really keep him down because he recovers from the sack and throws a pretty good touchdown, which is about fucking time. And it took a long while for Mahomes to get started in the offense, and it's now a 34-6 game. Chiefs go for the 2-point conversion, which you can't really blame them being down by this much. I mean, they need to get something going. They need to get back into the game, but it's very much too little, too late. 2-point conversion fails. I'm starting to think, is this going to be like the first Super Bowl ever where it's like a 40-0 game? I mean, has there ever been a team that hasn't scored a single point in a Super Bowl? I know there's been some pretty low scores like 3-6 or something like that, but not scoring at all in a Super Bowl is, it's a different fucking story altogether. The clock keeps running, the quarter's counting down. Saquon Barkley takes another beating, and he was obviously the guy that their defense was targeting. They knew he was going to have a big impact. They did shut him down. He still has an impact in the game, but they did limit it, I thought. He takes a beating every time he's got the ball. He's double covered pretty much, which at the same time leaves open another player to take his spot and score. And this leads us to Jalen Hurts going for a pretty good run. He's an absolute gun of a player. As I said before, he's one of these athletic quarterbacks, and he proves it. He runs past their defense, goes for a slide. Another standout for the Eagles was their kicker, Elliott. Can't remember his full name. He had a pretty average season kicking compared to the last season. I think he's about half for half, maybe under. And he gets pretty much every kick at the Super Bowl and puts those points on the board. There's also some very dodgy penalties involving the kicks. Some of them I didn't understand at all. And it seemed every time he went to kick, there was a penalty for, I don't know, something. So there's 9:42 left in the fourth. And Patrick Mahomes takes a strip sack and hand to the face and loses the ball. And at this point, I think it's official that the ball game is completely fucking over. And it's time for the Chiefs to pack up and go home and lick their wounds. This is the worst I think I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes play. The strip sack, which doesn't happen to him often. I mean, like I mentioned before, he didn't get sacked that much this year, and I think he's been sacked more and made more mistakes in this game than the entire 2 seasons. And as I was saying about it being massaged in the direction of the Chiefs, the penalties were pretty fair in this game. The umpiring in the Super Bowls obviously has to be better. They're not going to get some amateur umpire. They have to pick experienced guys. But so far, it was pretty good. It wasn't one-sided like the usual Chiefs games are. In fact, I thought a few penalties went the way of the Eagles, where they probably should have gone to the Chiefs, or there wasn't really that much in it to give away a penalty. But the hands to the face of Patrick Mahomes, I thought that probably should have gone towards the Chiefs. But I think he had lost the ball before the hands to the face or something like that. There was some reason for it, or I don't think the umpire saw it at all. Which, it's funny when the umpire doesn't see it and they call it, but then you see on the replay that something clearly happened. I don't know whether they don't take into consideration a replay on TV and they have to make the decision in the heat of the moment. But whenever there's a challenge or something, it always has to go to the rules analysis in New York and they have to review it. So it seems weird that they don't review evidence that is very blatant. In this case, I thought Mahomes probably should have got a penalty. It did look like a hand to the face, and they're a bit touchy when it comes to grabbing the face mask. And I think I'd even call this Patrick Mahomes' worst game ever. It's definitely the worst game the Chiefs have played in a very long time. So this is also the third penalty on an Eagles kick. And Elliott takes a pretty impressive 50-yard kick and scores, making it a 40-6 game, which is not bad for a guy who has missed most of the kicks this season. So it's about 7 minutes and 40 left, and the second catch goes to Travis Kelce. And at this point, the Eagles, like you definitely saw a bit of a shift in the play. Like it seemed to be more of an anxiety of knowing that you're 7 minutes away from beating the Chiefs in a absolutely humiliating Super Bowl. Kelce gets another catch. Even if they do score, at this point there's no hope of coming back. Another factor of the game I really liked was Tom Brady's commentary. It's the first time Tom Brady's provided commentary for a Super Bowl and not played in one, which must have been a very weird feeling. And having Brady, obviously an ex-quarterback and NFL player, recent NFL player, commentating was really fucking cool. I do like hearing ex-players like Brady and Tony Romo and the tight end from the Carolina Panthers. Can't remember his name. Tall blonde dude, tight end. I like hearing guys like them provide commentary. It's very insightful. And having Brady explain things from a quarterback perspective is really fucking cool as well. He's kind of putting you in the headspace of Patrick Mahomes and what he's seen and experiencing, rather than just a generic commentator saying, I don't know how they're going to get out of this one, Bob. Yeah, Bob, I don't know. It looks like they're going to have to pull something out of that bag of tricks. I hate that fucking corny shit, and having someone explain it on the level that Brady can, or a Romo, is much more insightful and interesting than hearing two fuckheads who probably haven't played or played 30-something years ago trying to get into the head of the quarterback. One thing he does highlight is the pass protection for the Chiefs' offense has been a very big issue, which, he was obviously right in the money with that, which makes sense because no one really seems to be protecting Patrick Mahomes, which is why he ends up getting sacked so many times and there's so much pressure placed on him. Eagles' defense obviously was targeting him. They had to put pressure on him, which has been a thing that not a lot of teams have done this year. This is what the Tampa Bay defense, Brady explains, did so well as they put pressure on him, and he seems to crack and he seems to get very rushed and flustered when there's pressure placed on him. You have to, in those seconds after the snap, you have to basically be coming at him, and their offensive line don't seem to be able to stop the Eagles defense or the Tampa defense. And that was a little connection between both games, a very similar style of defense, putting that pressure on Mahomes, getting around those offensive guys and putting direct pressure on him and making him fuck up while he's passing, which obviously worked out well for the Eagles. They don't seem to be able to adjust to it at all during the game, which is funny because Andy Reid's pretty good at adjusting to any situation, but they don't seem to pick up on it quick enough during the game to counter it, which obviously leads to the massive Chiefs deficit. Another thing I liked about Brady's commentary is he was talking about how it feels to lose and the feelings that come with it. He likened it to being in a nightmare when he lost to the Giants while he was playing with the Patriots. He also said that losing is the best teacher, and Brady has lost to the Eagles before, so he knows what it feels like to lose to this specific team. He has beaten the Chiefs. I thought that was interesting, a guy that's won 7 Super Bowls has been affected more by the Super Bowls he lost than the ones he won, which is interesting. I mean, personally, I kind of like to look at it like if you actually made it to the Super Bowl, you've kind of won in a way. You have to be at an elite level of any sport to make it to a final, which most teams don't. I mean, most players don't play in any final of any type. And to play in 7 Super Bowls, even if you've lost 3 or 4 of them, it's still incredibly special because most players won't play in a Super Bowl at all. And when you have guys like Mahomes and Brady who have played in multiple that consistently, that says that you're at a level that is beyond most players who will ever enter the league at any time in history. And there's always the argument that the offense is more protected now than it was. Yes, it's a different game. It's not as rough. You can't kill the quarterback or hit them after the play anymore. It's more offense orientated than it was defense, but defense wins championships, as in the case of Tampa Bay and the Eagles. Their defense won. The defense put pressure on the Chiefs' offense, and it had pretty much the same effect. So I think going forward, teams will be studying these 2 Super Bowls and the teams and how the defense was constructed. And I think the chink in the Chiefs' armor may have just been exposed. And if you're not a defensive coordinator in the NFL, taking notes on that Super Bowl or watching it all fucking week, studying every move the defense made, I think you fucking need to. Because there is a hell of a lot you can learn from the way the Buccaneers and the Eagles defense played. If you can put that pressure on Mahomes, I think we might see a different Chiefs team going forward. If teams can pressure him like that and make him collapse and sack him that many times, and he starts to get nervous and his game starts to suffer, which we saw during the Super Bowl, you see he does get affected by the pressure. The Chiefs are one of those teams that once they win, they get that confidence and they're basically unstoppable. It's a bit different when things are on the back burner and they have to make up a score and the pressure starts getting to them. So I think you're going to see a lot of defenses copying the defensive structure of these two teams going forward to put pressure on them. And yeah, maybe this is the end of the Chiefs' reign. Yeah, maybe the gaps in the armor have been exposed and defensive coordinators will start to target that. Yeah, maybe we might see a different Chiefs team. Who knows? If I was a defensive coordinator, I would be studying the plays and the structure of the defense. I would learn as much as I can. But yeah, going back to what Brady was saying about how he's learnt more from losing and how those losses in the Super Bowl were so painful. The winning was great, but it's the ones he lost that kept him up at night. But at the same time, yeah, I also think that, yeah, let it go. I mean, you made it to like an elite level. It's pretty fucking special whether you win or lose. And I mean, I've played local grand finals in rugby. I've played 2 of them and we both lost. One was pretty close and we should have really won, and the other one, it was kind of neck and neck, and then there was a bit of a blowout and then we lost by like 20 points. But you know, at the same time, I have no regrets about it. I mean, I don't care if I win or not. I mean, it's obviously not a Super Bowl level, not playing for anything apart from, you know, club pride. But I know other people who still regret, oh, we lost this final from, you know, this year, or I've never played in a grand final. Who cares? Let it go. There's more to life than winning or losing. Be humble in winning and humble in losing. It's the same thing, just inverted, more or less. Learn from losing, but don't regret, because, you know, some things just turn out the way they do. There's nothing you can really do about it. Especially in amateur sport where, you know, you're not playing for contracts and money or fame, glory, or any of that shit. It's a local game. Who cares? It doesn't mean anything except for that local club and, you know, the players that played in it, really. And even so, it's still an achievement. You're still, you know, the best in that division or state, whatever it happens to be. But it's just interesting hearing Brady talking about the losses, because he's associated so much with winning. Hearing him talk about loss and losing, yeah, was very insightful to hear. And that was probably the most interesting part of the Super Bowl for me anyway, was hearing that perspective. And this brings us to Johnson's interception, but unfortunately I think this one's coming back. It would have been a hell of an interception. It was called offside. And the offside rule in most sports is, I always find it really confusing, especially in sports like rugby, where you have, like, you know, people jumping over both sides of the line. It's very hard to tell. I got pinged for it a few times when I played. I could never understand what I did. Because you only have the one umpire in rugby, you don't have 5 of them watching different angles and stuff on the offense and defense. And obviously, yeah, you're on the wrong side of the line, but it's so hard to see when things are moving that fast. The ice hockey offside is a lot more easier to pick up, you know, crossing that blue line. But still, like, I mean, like, you know, the puck, the ball could be a fraction over, or the player could, you know, be a fraction over, and without the assistance of cameras and replay, it can be very hard to pick up in real life. I did love the shot of the Eagles owner. He just looked so spaced out and in complete disbelief, I think, like the rest of the audience was. I don't think he could believe that they were up by that much during the Super Bowl playing the Chiefs. He looked like he was on a different planet. And Mahomes is tackled again. But the Chiefs managed to score. The touchdown goes to Hopkins, but it's a little too late. And it's unrealistic that they're going to come back from such a deficit. So the scores are 40-12. Chiefs going for another 2 points with 2 minutes and 54 seconds left. Kick is good, but there's a penalty, so this making it 14-40. Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Eagles, is starting to look very excited at this point. He's been with the Eagles for 4 years, and he's gone to 2 Super Bowls out of that 4, which is not too bad for a pretty young coach. Which is ironic because, as I said this is a bit of payback from a couple of years ago, and they've had a lot of criticism in between those years. Not just Nick Sirianni, but Jalen Hurts also. It's a bit of a validation and a bit of payback for him. Last year, Eagles fans wanted to fire him. They wanted his head. They wanted him gone. They thought he was full of it. And now look at him. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. And I do respect and love the resilience of people like that. It's good seeing a guy and a team that have been critiqued and criticised and beaten down and being the runner-up the last couple of years finally win. So the fourth quarter is evaporating fast. Chiefs try an onside kick and it fails, which always seems to be the case with an onside kick. I reckon I've only seen about 5 of them in the 20 plus years I've been watching the NFL. So they're trying to kill the clock and trying to score. The Chiefs don't give up, but it's a done deal at this point. One of the highlights too, or at least for myself anyway, was seeing the devastated look on Travis Kelce's face. It was great just seeing him being knocked down a peg. I like his brother. I just think he is a tool. I just think he's just so over the top. These stupid celebrations and dances for getting 5 to 10 yards. Like, win the fucking game, then celebrate. I hate that showboating crap. And, seeing him last year carry on and all that over the top shit, I just don't like it. I respect people who are humble in victory, and he appears like one of those guys that jumps up and down and carries on about how good he is and how they've won, and then turns around and says, "Ha, sucked in, you lost to the opposition." He just seems like one of those guys that is not a very gracious winner. So Nick Sirianni gets the sacred sporting tradition of the Gatorade shower. 2 guys grab the Gatorade and go to pour it over him. He kind of turns around and they go to hide it, and he got dunked with the Gatorade, which must be fucking disgusting, but it's probably... I'd take the Gatorade over the Mayo Bowl, where they dump mayonnaise on the coach. That's fucking disgusting. Can't remember what college does that, but I watched that game, and that was so gross. You would need 4 or 5 showers to get that out of you. It'd ruin your hair and your clothing, all the oil. You'd have to shave your head to get it out of your hair. All that oil and shit just soaking into your fucking hair and your scalp. Oh, fucking gross. So Gatorade would clean off a lot nicer, I think. And there's still a couple of minutes left in the game, and the Eagles are celebrating. They know they've won. It's that counting down, that anxiety of they've won the Super Bowl. The clock just has to catch up with the realization. I think this game has a lot to teach the Chiefs. I think 1, it will definitely knock them down a few pegs. If only for a while. I think they'll take a long time to recover from this. And 2, I think it's a bit of a warning. I think the flaws in the Chiefs' game plan have definitely been exposed in a very big and public way. I don't think they're quite as good as they think they are. I think their thing is that explosive offense they have. And I think once defenses around the league learn to put pressure and learn from the Eagles and the Buccaneers about putting pressure onto Mahomes, if they do that all the time, he'll get very worn down. I think once the defense starts to do that on a league-wide level, we might see a very different Chiefs team play. And maybe this has a shockwave for them, and I don't know, maybe they don't go to a Super Bowl for 10 years. Maybe this is it for them. Who knows? Or maybe they come back even bigger and stronger. I think one of the bigger losers in the NFL are the New York Giants. I bet they're regretting getting rid of Barkley. They needed to pay him like another $20,000 or something like that, because I don't think he wanted to leave, and they wouldn't match it, and the Eagles offered him a better deal, which seems like one of the worst business decisions in history. And going back to what I was saying about those stupid shots of celebrities in the crowd. Whenever there's something not happening, they always cut to a celebrity watching which is obvious. I mean, it's a high-profile event. Of course, there's going to be celebrities there. One celebrity that I see over and over again, I reckon I've seen him on the last probably 5 to 10 Super Bowls, is Paul McCartney. Why is he always at a Super Bowl? This is an English dude. I wouldn't think he would be into American football. I'd kind of picture him more as a rugby or a soccer guy myself. Is he just there because it's a high-profile event? Does he like the sport? I don't know, because I think a lot of celebrities are there just to get seen because they know the camera's going to eventually land on them. They haven't had their face seen in a couple of months, so good way to get on TV. Another person I noticed was Lady Gaga. She's gone a bit goth this time. She always seems to sing a sad song at whatever event is happening these days. So another touchdown for Kansas City. It's now a 20-40 game, but yeah, its time is pretty much up at this point, and I don't think there's any way Chiefs can score another 20 points with under 2 minutes to go. However, the Chiefs do come back a bit. Mahomes has another good throw, but then again, this is too little too late. Where was this in the first half? It could have been a very different story. They go for a 2-point conversion, and it works this time, and at this point in the game, you pretty much have to. You're going to lose anyway, so you might as well lose by less. So it's now 22-40. At this point in the game, the Eagles have also turned off. They kind of know they've won and they're not really trying as hard, which I kind of wanted them to keep up the pressure and really put an epic hurt on the Chiefs. They could have maybe scored another 10 points, make it 50-22. But they seem to kind of shut down and go into party mode, which, yeah, I don't think you should party until the fucking whistle or the siren's been blown. Because the Chiefs do start to come back, and if they had more time in this game, I think things could have gotten ugly for the Eagles. I think it could have very well, if the Chiefs played better and there was a bit more time, it could have been a 32-40 game, which is not as good as a 22-40 game. But then again, like, the Eagles do switch off because they kind of know they've won, but at the same time, yeah, I think they should have put a bit more pressure on them. And at this point, there's only 1 minute and 40 seconds to go. The clock's counting down. And yeah, sucked in Chiefs. Cry, Paddy, cry. At the same time, in saying that, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have won a hell of a lot in the last couple of years. I mean, they've been the best team for the last 4-5 years consistently. Going to 3 Super Bowls in a row is no easy feat. Very few teams have ever done it, so they should consider themselves fortunate and lucky to be that good to make it. Even if they've lost, yeah, they're still a great team. And I'm not a particularly big fan of them. I've never quite understood people or teams who do win so consistently and so often, and then they are so devastated by 1 loss or 2 losses, and then they're like, oh yeah, we just didn't play hard enough, yada yada yada. They were just too good for us. It's like, you've won enough. You have something. You have won. You might not win this year, but you won last year, and you won the year before, and you maybe not that year, but then you were won the year before that. So it's all relative. You've still won something, which is far more than most players will ever do in their career. Most players will not get to a Super Bowl. So the final siren goes, the game is over, and the official score is 22-40. Eagles win. Fly, Eagles, fly. It was a pretty one-sided game. The Chiefs were never really in it. The Eagles were far too dominant, far too strong from the first play of the game. Once they scored early on, you knew they were going to be a runaway freight train, and they did just that. They were playing for something. There was a bit of payback, and they had something to prove to themselves. And there was no better challenger than the Chiefs. I was just surprised that the Chiefs didn't put up more of a fight and didn't come out swinging. I think they were generally hyped up on their own success. They've had such good luck lately. They've won a lot of Super Bowls and games. Like I said, 4 or 5 losses in 2 years is pretty damn good. I think they generally believe that they were better than the Eagles and they were going to go in and just beat them again, like they did 2 years ago. I think this time around the Eagles were definitely playing for something much larger than themselves. It wasn't just the vainglory of getting 3 in a row just to make another appearance in the history books. There was something very deeper than that. There's a bit of revenge, a lot of winning for each other and for the team and the fans. They definitely weren't going to get sucked into the way the Chiefs wanted to play. They were definitely playing on a completely different level to the Chiefs. Despite it being a pretty one-sided game, it was still pretty good. And, especially to see a team as good as the Chiefs' fall from grace, it was even better. The better team won at the end of the day. I don't think the Chiefs can blame anyone but themselves. The Eagles were way too strong. They were too big, too fast, and they were too skilled. And it's also great to see Jordan Mailata, however you pronounce his last name, become the first Aussie to play and win in a Super Bowl. That was very good to see as well. I've been following his career for the last couple of years and seeing him grow and elevate into the defensive player he's become. And yeah, he's one of the best in the league. So it's great seeing him evolve into that. One of the best moments of the Super Bowl was Nick Sirianni's speech afterwards. He wasn't as over the top as I thought he was going to be. He was humble. He thanked God and his family. There was no showboating. He was humbled by the struggle, I think. Now he's reached that mountaintop. I think he's really shown his true colours as a very humble guy. And this is a very different Sirianni from a few years ago when he's running up and down the sideline yelling at the camera like he was the one playing in the game and had just scored. He was very in your face and over the top, and yeah, he's a very emotional guy. And after all that bullshit from the previous season of, I'll get rid of him, he's all talk and all this shit, he's finally proven that he is an elite level coach. And Jalen Hurts was the same thing. I wasn't sure quite what to expect by him with his speech. He was very humble. He's had some struggles over the last couple of years. He's battled injuries and lots of criticism from experts in the press. They doubted if he could get to the top and if he was this, great caliber player. In my opinion, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's definitely one of my favourites. I remember his first year, you could just tell that he was different. And there's a lot of great quarterbacks now. Like, it seems every couple of years there's this new batch of, football whiz kids that are going to eventually have great careers. Look at Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, he's had some pretty shit years recently. This year was crap, and he's not quite as athletic. He's a different style of player, but yeah, Jalen Hurts was just one of those guys you could see he had that edge to him. He had something a bit different, and I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's very cool, and he does stay calm under pressure, and ultimately he dismantled the Chiefs' defense. And all of this at the age of 26. Back to when I was 26, I was not playing in the Super Bowl. What was I doing? I think I was probably still working at Macca's, making minimum wage, doing fuck all, dreaming of getting to the top, but just not having the ability or the skills to get there. And this is a guy at 26 that's faced this criticism, come back from injuries, and won a Super Bowl. I mean, what's he going to be like when he's 36? How many Super Bowls is he going to win? Because he's definitely going to win another one, I think. It's incredible to see that. Now it's Lombardi Trophy time. It's very different to last year's over-the-top Chiefs win. Mainly Kelce's over-the-top showboating. Jalen Hurts and the owner were very humble. It's once again family-orientated. It wasn't about Taylor Swift or any of that fucking bullshit. I definitely felt there was a change in the NFL, a changing of the guard even. I think the Eagles might be the next NFL powerhouse. I think there was some proving they needed to go through, maybe a trial by fire to prove they could handle getting to the top, but I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with from here on out. They've been pretty good in the last couple of years since Jalen Hurts has come into it. Even before that, what's his name? Nick Foles, the guy that took over from the injured Carson Wentz, who beat Tom Brady, very underrated quarterback. He was kind of typecast as a backup quarterback after that, which I don't get because he had literally beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. So they've had some pretty good players and great coaches at that team.
G'day. Don't skip. Let me interrupt the podcast that you're currently listening to with some blatant self-promotion. What do you get when you mix two Aussie mates, a splash of booze, well, more than a splash, and some microphones? You get Cheers Big Ears, hosted by myself, the Chad, and my mate Matt, and sometimes, but more often than not now, my missus Bobby. It's a podcast of adult beverages and not so adult conversation. It's not serious, far from it. Well, except for that one episode, but that was just that one. We're available wherever you get your podcast fix. Cheers, Big Ears.
And that brings us to the end of the show. What did you think of the Super Bowl? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Do you like the NFL? Do you like the Super Bowls? Do you like sport in general, or do you just not care? Do you think there's more important things the world could be focusing on and a better allocation of money and resources? The sport's a distraction, I think. It's good. I mean, I love sport. And when you break it down to its fundamental components, it's a bunch of grown men chasing a ball around on a field or a court or wherever, or a puck. It is kind of ridiculous and absurd when you really break it down like that. But at the same time, it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's passionate. It brings people together. It's your side versus my side, that team and this team. It's conflict, it's drama. You have winners and losers, highs and lows, passion, love, fury, anger, hate. It's got all those emotions encapsulated into the one live event. I love it. I love sport. I do see past all the hype and over-the-top bullshit. I don't take it too seriously. If my team loses, I don't really care. I'm happy to go to the game and see it live and take in all that atmosphere and see these guys play live. I do like watching sport live. The commentary gets a bit annoying sometimes, especially if you have real shit commentators. I think I'll probably watch any sport live. There definitely is an atmosphere and a presence when you see any live sporting event. There's this primal and tribal aspect to it, and take it from me, I'm a West Coast fan. Whenever I go to see West Coast live, I'm usually one of 4 people sitting in enemy territory, and this is doubly weird for me because it's my home state. So I'm watching the home team from my state play, but I'm going for the opposition. I've recently also followed one of the home teams, and it was very weird going in supporting them in the finals last year. It's very weird for me anyway because I'm usually barracking for the opposition, but it's still good. It's a cool experience. Yeah, sport can get a bit over the top, and there's always those dickheads that take it too far, and that's the other duality of sport is you have those sad people that's their life. They take it way too seriously and they can't let it go, and their blood pressure goes up or whatever, and it can have some very adverse physical effects on them. Or those other one-sided, one-eyed football supporters that won't watch the finals because their team isn't in it. So I won't watch a grand final unless my team's in it. It's like, well, you might be dead before that happens, so you might want to just appreciate the sport for what it is, a sport and spectacle and entertainment. Enjoy the football. If you don't have a team you're barracking for, they're the best games to watch because it's no emotion. You're just appreciating and watching the game for what it is, rather than getting so intense and chewing your nails down. But I've waffled on about that for too long. Right, that brings us to the end of the show. A big thank you to everyone who listened to the end. If you'd like to support the Truth Tank, there's a couple of things you can do. Head on over to the Facebook and Instagram page, give them a follow and a like, share them around with your friends. You can listen and download your favourite episodes of the Truth Tank on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Pandora, or wherever else you get podcasts from. I've recently released the Weekly Tank, which is going to be more of a current events, history, sport, mysteries. The first one was Disney and Netflix, the death dealers of physical media. If you haven't listened to that, go ahead and check that out now. It's a very interesting show about how some of these huge companies treat their customers in the Southern Hemisphere and the decline and targeted destruction of physical media like DVDs and Blu-rays. So tell your friends, to your family, tell anyone you think might like the show, help spread it around and get the word out there. If you feel so inclined, why not leave a 5-star rating and review? Each review helps the show grow and get found. So I'll be back in the next week or two, hopefully 2 weeks at the latest now. Now I've got this new momentum for editing, and I'm getting these episodes pumped out a lot faster. I'll hopefully be back in the next week or two with a brand new episode. So until then, I'm the Tank. This is the truth to tell.